Hello and welcome to this first campaign diary episode. I'm Pete, this is Garblag Games. This is a new format of video that I've wanted to try out, so your feedback down below will be very useful for me. We've done prep sessions, we've done the first episode of our new show, Every Star a Tomb, and now what I wanted to do was come back and see how the prep set me up for the episode and anything I learnt, any interesting thing that's happened, and sort of do a bit of a diary of our activities. This is kind of the plan, do, review, and this is the review section where we say, did what we prepared set us up for success? Cool, okay, so we had our first session last Thursday, episode 1 of Every Star a Tomb, and our 4 players, Dan, Millie, Rob and Wojciech, all had a great time. They all did a really good job role-playing their characters. I thought it was a really good RP session. I knew from going into it that there was going to be a lot of role-playing in this first session. I wanted it to be about them getting a feel for the world, so they got a lot of information, but also for them to start to feel out their characters and start to play them, express their behaviors and their personalities, and they all did that very, very well. If you haven't watched it back, you can go up here and click there if you're watching back later. If you're watching this live, then I'm just sticking my finger in the air. Hello Lupercal, hello Scott, thank you for joining me. So we had a teamster, a scientist, a marine, and we were going to have an android. Rob was going to play an android. And when I discussed the kind of religious aspects of the setting that I was going for, he was very interested in that and wanted to play an android who was very religious. And I thought this is a great idea. But it then gave me the idea to create the believer class. Now, in our last running Mothership session, there's a link for those down below. Discussed the believer class and a bit of the background of the setting. I'm not going to go through it all again. You can go and watch that if you want to. But there is a kind of division in the religious order within the cluster of stars that the story takes place in. And I thought it was really cool that Rob kind of latched onto that and wanted to play with that and exploit that, and he really got into it a little too well. I think it kind of freaked out some of the other players, but that was good. Brother Immaculate, a very very appropriate name. So Rob actually changed from being an android to being a believer, and I thought, oh, this is cool. We can try out my new class. Its trauma response is based around resting as well, and having only played Mothership as one-shots previously, there'd never been any resting. It had been full-on gruesome action from start to finish, with some tense, scary, quiet moments, but never out of danger enough to rest. Whereas Every Star a Tomb, although the very name of it implies that everywhere they go there's going to be death, there will be times when they can rest. So I thought it'd be interesting to exploit the rest roles that get used, and we'll see how that comes up. It hasn't come up yet. They did go on a long enough journey that they could rest, but they hadn't suffered any ill effects up until that point. So I think that's okay. So those are our characters. We had a teamster, Dan, Alina, the teamster, Millie playing Mariano, the scientist, Wojciech playing Stanley, the marine, who's an interesting character as well, and Rob playing Mac, the believer. So that's our squad. They've been sent by the Trevane Foundation to go and investigate what Lucian Praxim, who is the regional manager for the cluster, has been up to. And yeah, Lupercal saying, Brother Immaculate was really cool. I want to join his definitely not a death cult. Yes, Rob is chucking out some death cult vibes. So, but it's all fun. It's all part of Mothership. So it started with them waking up in cryo, as I like to start a lot of my sci-fi horror stuff. They were on a long journey and they arrived. So the beginning was really the debrief for them, to go through the player brief that I had given to them, but I'm pretty sure not all of them read, but that's fine. They're players, that's cool. And then to deliver a few recurring character names and information, their touch points that they can go back to, people they can call on for assistance if need be. They met Glover, the actual, more of a robot than an android, who was on board the Orpheus, the vessel. I don't read into the name too much. And they began to sort of hear about the wider world. The ship had arrived in the system. They had some information about 2 locations to go to, the Raumer Scoop Station and the mining depot. Obviously, the information they've had is 5 years out of date, and that was one of the things of trying to convey to them, that although I've dumped a big star map and a load of information on them, it's not going to be what they're expecting. And they responded to that really well. They were curious, they were interested, not in an overly way, but in a very natural way that felt like they were kind of trying to figure out between them which site they should go to first. I wanted the story to begin and branch in 2 directions to start the story, right? To see how they go, and whether they make the same connections that I think they might do. So the Raumer Scoop Station, the idea of that is a kind of haunted house space station with a strange religious cult on board. This has evolved slightly in my mind, and I'll talk about that at the end when I talk about next time, right? Because obviously we think about where it's going, which is nearer. And then the mining depot on Titaria, another planet in the system, but it's further away, and it was on the other side of the grave, which is a huge starship graveyard left over from a battle 5 years ago that now is the home to cannibal space pirates. Are they really cannibal space pirates? Are they not? We may find out. That will be fun. But as soon as they heard cannibal space pirates, they were kind of like, let's not fly by the cannibal space pirates to get to the planet where there's rioting going on and no communication going on. This sounds like 2 problems. Let's deal with the simpler problem first, which I thought they might lean more towards the scoop station. And it actually turned out that in my exploration of the mining depot, I'd given it a lot more detail than the scoop station. So, but obviously I had a bit of time between my last stream and actually running. So adding a few bits in around names of characters, with Chiguri, who's one of the rescue, the last, basically the exposition dumper for the party in this scenario, the person that is kind of I can use to reinforce the urgency or a problem, that kind of thing, without it being railroady. I want it to be that they're suggesting the players have got very strong opinions about what their characters feel and would want to do in each situation. So that's actually fine. So they decided, after their nice meeting with Glover, they found out about a few other organizations that have come from Weaver Station to the Diaries system. There's the Armus Industries. There's the Branching Order, who are another religious group from outside. And then the ship itself is run by the Lane Runner Corporation. So throwing a lot of this out with not a lot of information behind it right now. And I will have a section in my notes that will start to form up on corporation data and information about them. I love the in the Mothership 0 edition, it may still be on the website, there's an Android origin random generation table, which I think is really good, short and sweet, really cool. But plasticized human was on there, and I've just loved that since we first played Mothership. And Mark's character Birch was a plasticized human, so this kind of rubberized and like that. I can't remember the name of the artist, but he would make kind of corpse art, which was like plasticized people. But anyway, so strange androids, strange cults, some arriving, some already here. So it's kind of this melting pot already, giving them lots of potential. So 2 clear options was a good thing for them, and they had a good debate over which to go for. It didn't take too long, but they thought about it and they questioned it. And while they were kind of discussing, Dan wanted to go off and see if he can get some hold of some guns, and that's fine. I think combat in Mothership's really deadly. Even if you've got big guns, you're probably likely going to die. So we didn't have any combat in the first session. There was a fight at the end, but it was narrative. So we'll see how that goes next time, because I think the Igniter cult on the Scoop Station are going to violently try and repel or capture the party. So anyway, after talking to the comms officer, Weisinger, of the ship, so this is a Lane Runner Corporation crew member, they found out that there was rioting and that the Scoop Station had been tilted into and lowered into the atmosphere of the gas giant. I'm not sure, Scott. Now this was to evoke the haunted house feeling, and very much something like Event Horizon, where they first arrive at the Event Horizon and it's in the atmosphere of Neptune, right? So they've got clouds, so they can have lightning, because you can't have lightning without some clouds, right? So, but I wanted a slightly different feel, and this kind of russet red brown clouds being foreboding and lightning crackling through them. So there was a part where they were flying in. I was trying to emphasize that kind of scary feel for the environment, right? To bring the story alive a bit and give them a real mental picture of what was going on. So I had a drawing of the space station, and then tried to sort of evoke the locale. Oh, thanks, Lupercal. The Event Horizon vibes were really strong. Loved it. Cool. Now, that was what I was going for. So, some of Event Horizon's a bit crazy. I like that film, even though it has big flaws. So, it took them a couple of days to get out there. And in that two-day trip, and they'd met their pilot, Dunleavy, they had a very interesting in-character conversation about carrying weapons, cults, violence. There was a bit of I think the disagreement came later, but it showed that the way the players are thinking about their characters, there's going to be some friction in there, but not to the detriment of achieving their job. I think they just all slightly disagree on how they might go about it, which has plenty of opportunity for me to find the little cracks between the PCs and slide a little wedge in and try and lever them, not to get them to fight each other, but in order to get to a stage where they might leave each other alone or wander off annoyed, or take a, oh God, I've just got to get away from you kind of thing. And they wander off into the haunted house space station on their own, and something bad happens, trying to think of, with a sci-fi horror game, you really got to think about how you can increase the atmosphere and tension, and really sort of simulate that kind of frayed nervousness and that fear and that feeling that would come in, and start to try and play on people's characters' fears and desires. Now, the good thing is all the players in the party are good enough to know what I'm doing, so they're kind of playing into that. And it was great to see sort of Millie and Dan talking about, well, should we go in, should we not? People were arguing, and Rob was like, yes, we should go on the space station. If there are religious people there, I will talk to them. And then Stanley was like, I'm gonna do I'm here to protect you, whatever you're doing. So they were all playing their role really well. And afterwards, I think a few of them were like, did we make that difficult for you? I said, no, that was great. That was really interesting. There was some nice conversation between the characters. It just felt like the characters talking, which was really good. So I was appreciative of those efforts more than they probably thought. So that was good. So good intro, info dump, good journey to get there. Let them talk to each other. And they went for it, which was really good. They're experienced, seasoned role players, right? We've all streamed together a lot. We've all chatted a lot on our Discord. So, there's lots of ideas floating around. So they kind of went for it. So by the time they got to the scoop station, there was a thread of opposition. I wouldn't say conflict, but slight opposition between them. And I was chipping in with Dunleavy in a way to sort of make some of those threads stronger, right? And saying, oh, I don't want a gun, or oh, why are you doing this, or who's that, and what, oh god, you're crazy, so I was kind of in the parts where they were all weirding each other out or arguing. I was using Dunleavy to kind of work one of those. At least that's how I felt I was doing. It may not. It's like you may watch it back and be like, Pete, you didn't really say much. The occasional comment, but that was my intention, right? And I think that by the time they got to the scoop station, their characters were in a position where they would potentially argue over what to do, rather than sort of let one person sort of say, let's rescue everybody, huzzah. They were like, no, this is like a grimy, grubby, world. There's cannibals over there, there's rioting over there, we've got here, what's going on? No one's talking to them. And then when they saw the crashed ship, so and to make that crashed ship believable, I made their ship have piloting challenges. So they had to make a roll, which I think was that the first roll that generated stress? Can't remember. But it generated some stress, and the magnetic forces of the gas giant were so strong that it was causing the piloting to be difficult, which then explained there's a ship crashed into the space station, and that crash into the space station then made them worried for their own safety, right? So it's kind of a dual element. So they approached carefully, very carefully. And then this is where I decided that where are they going to dock? How will that happen? Who's on the space station? So I knew that most of the the rescue people and the staff of this refinery station had been captured and taken up to the higher level in one of the docking bays, which now that the station is like this, the docking bay is being used as a hole to throw people into the gas giant, because this cult of igniters believe that they can reach critical mass by dropping stuff into the gas giant. The gas giant will turn into a star. They're crazy, that's not going to happen, but they're going to give it a go. And they think if they could pull out the fusion power core and throw it in, that would be really good. That would be really useful. In reality, it would probably set off an explosion that would destroy the station, right? So I thought, how do we emphasize this? And one of my notes previously had been where are we? Power core, right? Where are we? Power core, snatch and grab. How do we give them an intermediate goal, not just throw an obstacle in the path? So wanted to appeal to them to come on the station. They were going to go on there anyway. They had to make a decision between which docking level to move to, and I thought this escaped rescuer will be on the lower one because all the bad guys are on the upper one. He's trying to get away from them. It's logical. It also means they start entering the dungeon further away from the endpoint, which is handy. And Chiguri was a character who was not completely helpless, but on their own and needing help, and has obviously been sitting there trying to hail someone, but the magnetic field of the gas giant, magnetic fields and gravitic anomalies will be an important part of this for a reason, part of the whole campaign, right? Had been sitting there waiting to get that, to hold their lady shave. Sorry, I still remember episode 1 where they had little lady shaves sprayed silver as their communicators. It's got their little communicator waiting for someone to arrive and sees the ship and then talks to them. And quite rightly, some of them thought it might be a trap. Mariano Millie wanted to get on board and help. Scientist, more empathic than the others, whereas Dan's character, interestingly for the Teamster, and I think he's going for a bit of the gruff, I get stuff done kind of Teamster, rather than I'm the laid back, chill guy who's having a fag in the corner kind of thing. So he, hey Grimolf, they had a bit of an argument about that, a discussion, let's say, which was really good. I felt like that was a good conversation to have. They had reasons for an argument, and they played it through really well. Ultimately, I used Chiguri, and I think, it's the first episode. Everyone's playing the game. We know we're streaming. So they knew that going on the station was important, but that where and how was really what they were discussing. And Chiguri gave them the information about the power core, and that the control mechanism was removed and hidden in a nearby chamber. But then to add some danger, I threw in one of the igniters who was in the nearby area. Now, because I think Stanley made a really good roll to a critical success to creep up, I allowed him to simply take this guy who was bent over, trying to lift something heavy to get this thing out. He'd seen it and he was like, ugh. So Stanley just Wojtek did like to describe that gruesome attack a lot, and was no doubt just getting into the swing of sci-fi horror and Mothership. So that was good. And we kind of ended the session with them. They're having boarded the scoop station. They've got their hands on this device, which would obviously go down into the power core, the fusion core. They know now that there's sort of marauding igniters who are hanging around, potentially causing trouble, grabbing people, taking them upstairs. They're not necessarily murdering them unless they have to. I think they feel that a conscious being is more of a contribution to the gas giant than a dead one. But they are also taking materials and anything that looks particularly cool and just throwing it into the gas giant. So it doesn't make complete sense, and it's not supposed to. It's Mothership. There's weird shit going on. So that was the episode, and I thought it was a really good session. Good 2 hours. I think as a streaming episode, a product for the viewer, I thought it was really good as well. I would say that though. So if you don't agree, if you watch it back from that link and you think this, maybe that, or try this, try that, then please drop comments below. But just trying to ease them into the creepy weird challenges that they will face in Mothership, in my setting. And there's a lot more things to go, because as I've said, the hunt for Lucian Praxim is the framework from which I'm hanging all of these little horror stories, and I'm trying to do a little bit different in each star system and with different worlds. So we'll see how we go. There's plenty for them to be doing in this system, though, so they've got a couple of things to figure out. What I'm going to be interested in is if they survive and get to Praxim's office, there's going to be evidence that leads them to another star system. But they will still have, and that'll probably be in the next session, right? I don't want these things to take forever. I want them to get through some things and sort of enjoy it and have this kind of feeling of like it's like we're getting through and there's strange things going on and it's all around us, and oh my god, this is building and building, because it's all going to build to heading to the almighty star system and seeing two factions doing very strange things in order to try and understand the nature of the universe through the signals they believe are coming through the magnetic pulses and waves being generated by a magnetar, which is a pulsar with high magnetic field, and they believe it is going to, when it cycles down to be a regular pulsar, the end of the universe comes. And they're split on whether all the gas giants, I don't know why they're fixated on gas giants, it's just something that kind of came to me. All the gas giants will either turn into stars, the igniters, or collapse into black holes, the inverters, or as Rob called them, the innies and outies, which I think is great. So good. Whether any of that's true, whether it's not, I don't know right now, and I want to see how we kind of go and where they go and what they buy into, or what they don't believe, what they start to suggest it might be. Today, I had an idea for what they're going to find in the office, Praxim's office. There's this cult, obviously, and I thought, oh, the leader is going to be there. But then I thought, I watched Prince of Darkness a little while ago, and I really love the whole quasi-science, religious, parallel universe, demons, devil, all that kind of stuff. Really interesting take on it. I like John Carpenter films. And I've just got this idea of a big vat of goo with some guy's body inside that's being disassembled, and something to do with kind of the magnetic resonance. It's kicking out or something, affecting nearby people. I don't know. This is often this idea will come into my brain, and I need to let it germinate for a while to see what it links up to and how it kind of gets to a useful, intriguing and dangerous scenario. So all of that together, I think I want to do something kind of creepy for like who's leading this little cult. Like, it's not even a person, it's just a big vat of liquid that's like non-Newtonian fluid. It reacts to magnetic fields, and in the field of the gas giant, it is active, and it is impressing upon these people that there should be more mass thrown into, or something is down inside the gas giant, and this thing is like a manifestation of it, and it is sending the message to go down there, but the cultists are reading it wrong. Something like that. Starting to form in my mind as I talk. So that hopefully will be weird, right? And start to get them thinking, rather than just, it's a guy with a funny hat and they go, oh yeah, I'm a cultist. Like they're all worshipping like a 8-foot tall cylinder filled with sort of black green coursing fluid, which looks like it's full of glitter and gristle. You know, that would be like, they're like the leader, and they'll be like, what the fuck. So I think that would be quite cool. So I think I'm going to go in that direction, and that Lucian Praxim has found this thing and brought it back to his station because he knows it responds to certain magnetic fields. Basically, Lucian Praxim is going to have been going around these 5 star systems, collecting weird things, investigating magnetic anomalies, and looking at ancient relics that are left in all these star systems. And he believes they hold a key to understanding what's going on in the magnetar. Now, he doesn't necessarily believe that what the religious cults believe is true, but he thinks something is going on. And again, I haven't got a clue what. Super weapon, who knows? But we'll figure that out as we get further along in the story. So there's going to be this vat of liquid here. There's going to be a relic on Titaria, which is causing weird stuff going on there. And then in each of the other systems, there's going to be other strange things. But this one is a haunted house. Then Titaria is a zombie infestation. And for the others, I'll figure out what kind of horror movie I'm creating for that location. Because I think the Mothership Warden's operating manual does recommend you kind of thinking about the kind of horror story that you're doing. And it's fun just to kind of explore different kinds of horror stories within this larger structure, right? So find Lucian Praxim, bring him to justice, see what's going on. But the first step is they need to go and recover his files. So they're going to find that his files are gone. But there will be a travel itinerary and a recording of, oh, here we go, him discovering the vat, the cylinder, him finding the cylinder on let me bring up the story. I'm right now figuring out part of the bigger story. Look at that. That's going to be like one of the back planets, like Combine systems, like Combine or Diaries. Probably Combine, because they want to get to Combine. They got to go. They can go one of 3-4 different ways, right? There's going to be evidence of him going to Borlaug, Combine, in both the locations. So then they got things to figure out. Yeah. So it was a really good session. The RP from the players was fantastic, and I think that was one of the main elements that I really enjoyed as the game master. I got to kind of sit back a little bit and see how they're starting to create their characters and how I can emphasize or influence certain conversations. So that's really useful for me as the warden. I also got to describe the world, and they were sufficiently interested, but also disgusted is probably a strong word, but aware of the danger that might befall them. So that was really good. So all in all, I think strong first episode. But again, as I said, if you haven't watched it, there is a link. Please go check it out. Tell me what you think, either here or on that episode. Also, drop here anything that you may think in regards to my comments on that first episode, and how I'm running the game versus how I'm prepping the game. I will be back soon with more prepping videos, and also with more campaign diaries, obviously. For now, because I've got quite a lot in the bank from a prep perspective, I'm not really going to do any more prepping for the next session. I think we're going to play out how it happens. I've got the map for the station. I've now got the ideas. I've got the stats for all the igniters. I know the potential challenges they're going to face. And I've not detailed them out too much because a lot of this I want it to sort of grow and evolve in, you know, the narrative to grow with the players. So I think that will be good. But we've got a potential prison break to get the captured station staff and rescuers free. We've had that one already, Igniter stalking a crew member, so that was the lead-in encounter which we had. We've got the prison break, we've got the fusion core. What do they do with the fusion core? Do they go and do something with it, or do they just keep the control rod? And then we've got the sacrificial docking chamber, which is where there's going to be a gang of cultists throwing people out of a airlock. And then we've got the satanic vat, which will have a group of worshippers. Right, so we've got some encounters set up. We've got the information for Lucian Praxim, the hook to the next adventure, and we've got the stats for the bad guys, and we've got the map. So we've got everything we need to proceed with this next session. And I think they're probably going to go to Titaria, although they may decide that they want to go off and follow, you know, the link to Borlau or the link to Combine. Either's fine. What I'll try and do, and what I'm often trying to do, is time out the 2 hours of our show so that it lands quite well. And that, as we're doing at the end, but as we're doing sci-fi horror, it's often good to have a little lead in or a cliffhanger or some sort of twist happen. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah. Okay, cool. So that is my look back at episode 1 of Every Star a Tomb. The show is on Thursdays on Garblag Games from 9 p.m. GMT +1, and other streams are on Tuesdays, potentially other days, to do our running Mothership series, which you're here for this. Cool. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I'm Pete. This is Garblag Games. Stay safe and happy gaming.